Okay, hey everybody, welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. We are doing this, it's Thursday night for us right now. I have Coach Dustin, Coach Brad with me. And tonight we're gonna discuss what I think is probably one of the fundamental or essential behaviors, personality traits, qualities that most people do not have organically, but absolutely has to be developed, especially when you're talking about weaponized against violence. I know that's pretty vague, but stick with me. We're going to dive into it. We're back in 60 seconds. It's going to be a good one, guys. Many people understand that they can at any time become the target of a violent criminal assault. These same people know that they have a life, family, and property worth defending. Criminals understand that violence is its own language. Violence is not the sport of competition. Violence is not the art of fighting. Violence is about one thing: destruction. There are those who believe that violence, even in self-defense, is morally wrong. Then there are good people like you who know that defending yourself, family, and others, as well as your property, is not only a personal right, but a duty within a civilized society. Understand, violent assaults are won before they occur. People who learn strategy survive. People who do not will not. For those brave people who believe life is precious and worth defending, welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. Okay, all right, everybody, we are back. And, all right, okay, we're going to talk about an essential. It's almost hard to identify because once I reveal this, is it a personality trait? Yes. Is it a perspective? Yes. Is it a belief? Yes. There's different ways that people can come into this, but however you come into this, however you develop this, whether you have this innately because of a predisposition of how you were brought up, your life experiences, it is one of the fundamental essentials that your training needs to be built on, especially when talking about defending against violence. But before I have my kind of big reveal of what this is, we're gonna start and we're gonna do a little exercise. Okay, so I want you guys. I'm gonna hit you with a question here, and I want you guys to give me just your visceral, quick, first thing that pops in your mind. Don't overthink it. Just the first thing that pops in your mind. If you guys are criminals, if you're violent, anyone listening can do this too. If you're a violent predator, okay, who are you gonna target? So depends. I don't care what your end state is. I don't care if you want to mug somebody, you want to steal something to fucking sell it to flip it for drugs. I don't care if you're being initiated. I don't care what your motivation is, the why is. But you have to violently assault somebody. That's the way to get what you want. Who are you targeting?
Somebody that you perceive to be weak.
Okay. Right? So Dustin, right away, first visceral thing, somebody that appears to you to be weak. Brad, what was your first visceral thing?
Vulnerability. So like looking, like if I see vulnerability and opportunity.
Perfect. Okay. So vulnerability and / kind of opportunity, which that's kind of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. So Dustin goes with somebody somebody that we'd perceive as weak. Now, just for the sake of argument, to be, we like to go deep on things. Somebody to weak. Now, Dustin, are you talking about someone who's physically frail? Somebody who's 50 pounds?
It could be either. That's why I said somebody you perceive to be weak.
Yes.
Because Brad's answer fits into that definition too. Perfect. Someone who's weak, it's because they're vulnerable, right?
Awesome. So. Excellent. Okay. So when Dustin's talking about weak, he might be talking about physical appearance. He might be talking about the fact, like Brad said, they're distracted. It might be that they're with kids, they have a spouse, they have crutches, they are distracted, lots of things. But he's saying weak, and then Brad said vulnerable, or when there's a good opportunity. Excellent, perfect. Those are very logical answers. And I would think that most people that they're listening to this, that's probably what they came up with in their own mind, is something that fit within one of those kind of categories, okay? Well, I'm going to throw something different, and this is going to lead us to what I really want to talk about. But here's what I do. Who would I target? Ask me the question, because I like getting asked questions too.
Okay.
What do you think, Greg?
Yeah. If you're going to violently assault somebody, what are you looking for? Who are you targeting?
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Great question, guys. Love to answer this. Boom. Here's the way this goes in my mind. Okay. I am going to target a bodybuilder, I'm going to target a martial artist. I'm going to target a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. I'm going to target a wrestler. I'm going to target a boxer. I'm going to target a Thai boxer. I'm going to target anybody that falls into that type of category. That's who I'm going to fucking target. So just for the sake of simplicity, I am targeting a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. You say, well, how the fuck are you going to do that, Greg? Because on the side of his car, it says so-and-so's BJJ. In his t-shirt, it says Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. On his keychain, he's got a little black belt tag on it. You know what I mean? He's got cauliflowered ears, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. Like, it's easy to identify people. It's much easier than most people think, but that's who I'm targeting. Now, what's the difference, right? Like, contrast is awesome because when you have contrast, that's what shows you something. If everybody has the same answer and everybody has one paradigm of thinking or one perceptual view, then we can't, it's really hard to see differences. It's hard to see, things from other angles, which typically is where we find different answers, better answers, obviously. So there's a massive amount of contrast. You guys went for somebody who's weaker and somebody who's vulnerable. And again, there's lots of little details within that. I, at first glance, went very, very different. Matter of fact, I'm so opposite that people could say, why the fuck would you do that? You're targeting somebody stronger. Like you're targeting somebody that is trained. And notice, remember what I said? I said like a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. A world-class, like a world-class, belt-holding, trophy-winning boxer, Thai boxer. I said at the beginning, a bodybuilder. Whatever it is, right? I'm targeting these types of people. Why?
Because their response is going to be much more predictable.
Okay.
And
yeah, go ahead, Brett.
And also bound to it, right? Because I think what kind of popped in my head is like you said a black belt. You didn't say somebody like a white belt or a yellow belt or anything like that. Someone that isn't, it's what they've learned isn't so ingrained where they would deviate from what they've learned, right? So a black belt is like the way you train is the way you fight. So they're going to, exactly what kind of response they're going to be after.
See, perfect. I had in my head that we'd spend a few more minutes getting to the core of this, but perfect. You guys nailed it, right? So let me say it in a way that I want it framed for everybody. If I'm a bad guy, if I'm a violent fucking criminal, now I'm not talking about a guy who's having a bad day. I'm not talking about antisocial aggression where I'm just having a bad day and then I make stupid fucking decisions and now I'm doing something that I know I shouldn't be doing that normally is outside of my behavior pattern. I'm talking about a violent predatory criminal, meaning that I want something. I don't give a if I want your money for fucking drugs. I want your money just because I steal something to sell some, whatever it is. I have criminal intent. I am fucking going to target the bodybuilders, the martial artists, the black, whatever. Why? Because I can, with almost 100% certainty, predict what their responses are going to be. I can predict what they're going to do. You guys nailed it. That's the way I want you to frame it. I want you to understand how dangerous predictability is when it comes to violence. And that's going to lead us into what we're really going to talk about tonight. Let me just clarify maybe on the bodybuilder. Why would I say bodybuilder? Like right away with what you guys got. Oh, a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I get what you're talking about, Greg. When you attack him, he's going to use Jiu-Jitsu. He's going to want to take it to the ground. He's going to want to pull guard. He's going to want to get to the mount. He's going to want to do all these things. But why did I say bodybuilder?
Because it's going to be short-lived. Like there's so much meat there to fucking move around, right? It takes a tremendous amount of energy, and he's like we've had a lot of people that are in the police force and they're like, oh, the big guy, oh thank God that's what we're walking up to, because they're like, this isn't going to take that long because there's not going to be that much in the gas tank. But the small wiry guys, they're like, fuck, you don't know what you're getting.
Okay,
it takes a lot to fuel that much muscle, especially in an anaerobic way.
Okay. Now listen, what you guys both say, you talked about the conditioning. Okay? You got a big guy, a guy that's massively built, bodybuilding, that kind of thing. You're reasonably assuming that they don't have a massive gas tank, which for the majority of people built that big with that much muscle mass on their body, they probably don't have they're probably not a deep well of cardio. Right?
Not in those conditions.
Yeah, not in those types of conditions, 100%, where SNS is going, blood's not, all that type of stuff. But I actually went one indicator ahead of that. And I just want people to, again, I'm trying to show a perception, a mindset. You know why I would target now? Because here's the thing.
I can take one more swing at it.
Yeah, go for it.
Is it because so much of their world is strength based? So they're going to be very much try to grab you, push you, pull you, swing you. Again, it's a predictable, we'll call it a fighting style, even though it's not a fighting style, but
Yes.
you know what I mean?
Okay, put it this way. Okay, guy's 6'6", 380 pounds. That's a big fucking man, right? And he's got fucking muscle. I mean, like, he might have a little bit of a gut on a power lifter's gut, but this guy's a fucking big man, giant fucking hands. What do you think? And he's 30 years old. What do you think he's been using his entire life to dominate every situation that he's in? What do you think he's been told since he was young? What is his paradigm? What is his self-image? He sees himself.
Smash.
Yeah, fuck, he's 6'8", 380 pounds, hands the size of fucking hams. What do you think his response is going to be if someone comes up and tries to mug him? You know what I mean? The guy, he's just going to be like, I will grab you by the neck, I will pick you up, I will turn you upside down, and I'll bang you on your fucking head. I'll just grab you and throttle you around like a rag doll, bam, bam you, bam, bam. Like, what's the scene there when Incredible Hulk and, he grabs Loki and bam, bam, and smashes him around. He's predictable in his strength and his size because here's the thing. You cannot, for long, outrun or outperform who you truly believe yourself to be. You see, here's one of the, let's take a step back and go to the bigger overview. If I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, diehard, professed, BJJ aficionado, right? I love this with a passion. This is my lifestyle. What am I going to do in a physical confrontation?
What you train to do?
I'm not going to box. I'm going to do jiu-jitsu. Why? Because I am jiu-jitsu. I linked my identity to jiu-jitsu. Now, jiu-jitsu is amazing, right? Great stuff, great stuff. It is an essential to have elements and understanding and capabilities and skills within, like for the ground. That's an essential, right? But you know what's dangerous? To link your identity to that of a BJJ guy. I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu since 1994. Like UFC had just started. And we were doing, Jiu-Jitsu. My instructors were training privately with Hicks and Gracie. Like, no one knew what Jiu-Jitsu was. So I've been doing it for that long. Yet if you ask me, do I do BJJ? I'm like, no, I'm not a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. But I've been doing it for 20-something plus years. Right? Just rolled again on Tuesday night. Like, so yes, I do it. Like, do I understand it? Yes. Am I good at it? Yeah, I do it. But I'm not a BJJ guy. I've been boxing and Thai boxing. Like, I've done all these things, but I in no way, shape, or form link any of my identity. Not even a single part of it do I link to any of those arts. Because we're about weaponizing, we're about violence. Because here's the thing. Here's the word that I'm going to throw at you that we're going to talk about tonight. Okay? I would target the martial artists. I would target the big guys. I would target people that I have almost 100% predictable behavior from. Okay? You know who I would not want to fucking target? A cunning motherfucker. Cunning. I said that this is a personality trait. And so, am I cunning? Yeah, I work hard at being cunning. No, is that my personality? Well, I wasn't born with the cunning personality. Matter of fact, most of my youth didn't develop a cunning personality into me because I had the paradigm experiences that most people have being raised, which is things like understanding how to play by the rules, the social boundaries, the parameters of society. Society doesn't typically look favorably on people that are cunning because cunning is often linked to one other word, which is deceitful. Right? Matter of fact, if I give you the definition that if you just look this up, this is what you're going to get for cunning. Having or showing skill in achieving one's ends by deceit or evasion. Now put that into the context of the work environment. Put that in the context of a school environment. Put that in the context of a social environment. Oh, me and my buddies are out and we meet this group of girls and there's one girl in particular that I'm really interested in, but so is my buddy. But I'm like, well, fuck it, I want to date this girl. So by deceit and by evasion, I get the girl. That's not looked upon favorably, right? Because they'd be like, well, you manipulated. It was like almost a negative or evil, a nefarious end result that you were trying to create. But stop for a second. We're talking about, remember, context determines the content, which is why I'm always saying this. In the context of a violent assault where violent predatory criminals have targeted you and are trying to viciously assault, murder you or your family, cunning, right, is is one of the fucking essential skills, qualities, behaviors, perceptions, strategies, tactics. You get what I mean? You need to be a cunning. Because my end state in that is I want to fucking live. I want to protect my family. I want to fucking survive. So yeah, deceit or evasion? Yes, please. Can I get another? Yes, absolutely. I want as much cunning in what I'm doing as possible. So throw me your visceral feedback off that, and then we'll expand more.
You know, I just have a question. What do you think the most or the biggest resistance to that is? Because I don't, like you said, it's something that like you got to grow and you got to develop and you got to hone that characteristic trait. Yeah. So what holds a lot of people back?
Fucking beautiful question, Brad. Excellent. Matter of fact, I was working on something yesterday, and this thing came to me, and it came to me because I got frustrated. Because again, I was dealing with people that, here's the thing, there's two fucking reasons. I'm going to go on this little rant because I made this into a mini fucking workshop that is I'm going to do for the podcast, but you're going to get a preview of it right here. There's two reasons why what holds people back. First, reason number one, they do not understand or accept that violence is different. Period. They don't accept it or they do not fucking understand it. One of those two things, right? And the second thing is, they absolutely do not understand that there's a different way. That's it. All of it boils down to you know what it is? This is a generalized statement, but essentially true. Most people that are training in a martial art or a sport, but not to do the sport. I'm not interested in a sport. I do it for self-defense. But you're training in a sport. You're training in a martial art where you're limited to the martial art. They're teaching you within the system of martial art, which means it's predictable, right? But I just want to I want to do what's best for self-defense. Well, that's not it because it's limited. But either way, the people that train in that, they're eating an orange like an apple, right? They're eating an orange like an apple. They either do not understand that violence is different or they just go, well, there is no other fucking way. I looked in the yellow pages. I mean, I Googled martial arts in my neighborhood. I Googled self-defense, and every place claims self-defense. So can you eat an orange like an apple? Fuck yeah, you can. There's a better way. You know what I mean? So you got to eat an orange differently than you do an apple. Training for violence is different. Okay, so that's what's holding people back is that they either just can't accept that it's different or they just don't understand that there's a different way to this. So here's the thing with it. If we look at it and I look at myself and say, if I'm the bad guy, I'm going to target somebody that has predictable behaviors. Because here's the thing, because right away, people get pissed. When I say violence is its own language, man, you gotta train differently for violence. Martial artists and athletes get angry with me because what they hear is me saying, your art doesn't work. Your art's not the best. Your school's not the best. What you're doing's not the best. It won't work. That's all they hear. They don't hear the context with which I'm speaking. You get what I mean? Like, kickboxing is the best in a kickboxing match. Like, do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in a kickboxing match. You're going to lose. I don't care if you choke the kickboxer out 100 times. You're going to lose the kickboxing match. Why? Because it's not fucking kickboxing. Like, you're going to get disqualified. You know, you get you know what I mean? So like, yep. And listen, can you eat an orange like an apple? Fuck yes. There are people out there, there are athletes out there, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys, boxers, kickboxers, MMA guys that are world class. And if they get attacked in a violent situation, they're intense fighters. They're highly skilled fighters. This is not the majority of people. Most of the people listening to this, you're not a professional fighter. It's because you've gone to a couple tournaments, couple club rolls. You're not a professional fighter. Google what most students look like 3 to 5 years in any given art. You get what I mean? It's not what you see on Instagram. You know, you watch them spar, you watch them do pad work, the body mechanics are fucking rough, the weight transfer is barely there, the placement, the accuracy, the follow through, the emotional content, all very, very rough. Most people don't have what it takes to even become a decent amateur fighter, let alone make it to the highest ranks of the professional level. It's not happening. And that's, again, people are in denial. They don't want to hear that shit. Okay? So that's what prevents them to a lot of it. But here's the other side of it. You're becoming predictable. And when it comes to violence, right? Cunning has to supersede any loyalty to any one art, to any one strategy, any one tactic, any one tool. Cunning has to supersede that. So if people can acknowledge and go, okay, I get it. Violence is different. Okay, yeah, you have to start. We're talking asocial violence, attempted murder. It's fucking different. Okay, and the next thing, there's a completely different way, a better way. And that way is to be cunning. And so right there, I don't know if that fully, I hope that answered your question. Then I was about to go off on a deeper whole separate workshop, but it really has to boil down to these two things. Why get defensive? Why does it make them angry? It makes them angry because they're like saying, well, so there's some area that my art doesn't work. Have I been wasting my time? No, because everybody ultimately wants to know how to defend themselves. It's one of our core innate survival instincts is to be able to preserve our life. And so when somebody says, listen, you've spent 15 years earning this black belt, you're amazing in jiu-jitsu, you've won all these belts and trophies, but when there's a group of predatory criminals that are attempting to murder you, your jiu-jitsu is probably not going to be that effective. I mean, I'm glad, better to have that than nothing, but can you recognize that in that context, jiu-jitsu alone is inefficient? That's it. That's just a fact. The Gracies themselves say it all the time. The last place you want to be in a life and death street fight is on the ground. That's it. You do not want to go down. You cannot wrestle more than one person at a time. Period. Done. That's it. The best in the world acknowledge that. Now, in a fight, one-on-one, jiu-jitsu is probably one of the best fighting arts out there. But we're not talking one-on-one. We're not talking fighting. We're talking asocial violence. So they have to accept that.
One-on-one doesn't exist.
One-on-one doesn't exist. Exactly. So now, go ahead, Dustin.
I was just going to say, I think too, this is also where consent fits in. As you're talking about people's need to realize that, you have to be cunning. If you truly want to protect yourself, you have to be cunning. And I think, again, because a lot of people's reference point for maybe fighting, right, is martial arts, it's fights, which is always consensual, yes. Right? So you have to also accept the fact that we're not consenting ever when you're trying to save your own life or someone else's life, right? And that's where that cunningness is so important and why it's fair, by our definition of it. Of course you're going to want to be cunning because you're not consenting to fight someone. You're not consenting to exchange, in a duel with someone, yep. Right? So I think that really fits in well with this conversation.
100%. And I'll just throw this up because I love this. Shane said, you can eat soup with a fork too, but why would you? 100%, right? Don't eat an orange like an apple and don't eat soup with a fork. There's a better way, right? So, and yes, a consent, Dustin, 100% is exactly, it's fitting to put it in right at this point here. So let me describe this cunning a little bit more, right? Because what's the essence of cunning? I think everyone understands the word, but let me just give you the essence. The essence of cunning is basically this. It is like seeing a person, recognizing the route that they're traveling, and then getting ahead of them, digging a big hole along the path that they're traveling and waiting for them to fall in it. That's cunning, right? Where does this guy want to go? That's the end state. What does the bad guy want? This is why we're always talking bad guy blueprints. What do they want? Because here's the thing, I wrote down this question again, how do you develop cunning? If you guys think about that for a second, and I'd like you to come up with a visceral answer, how do you develop cunning? Because you guys could now talk strategies that we use and all this stuff, but where does this begin in terms of cunning?
It's kind of that outside of the box thinking, right? It's the non-typical expected types of behavior, which you then can apply to any situation, right?
Okay, I like that. Brad, do you have a quick...
Yeah, the first thing that popped in my head was thinking evil, because you got to think differently, Mm-hmm. And it's also it's understanding. We've talked about this before. Truly understanding what violence is one of the biggest root of how you can think differently and how you can be cunning, because that the purpose is different, or your purpose is different and your objective is different than dueling or standing toe to toe or teaching somebody a fucking lesson or proving a point. Do you know what I mean? Like it's different. There's no consent. You're not in a fight, and it's like your mission objectives are way different. So
Yes.
it's going to make you think different because the end result is get home safely to my family
Okay.
or protect my family.
Okay. Your guys, both your answer, Brad's summing up like your core, think evil, Dustin, it's doing unpredictable things, unpredictable behaviors, right? So what's the norm? We're doing unpredictable behaviors, okay? Those are good. Now I'm just going to pop up this because Linda Lewis, right? The term ruthlessness is repeated in my head as I listen to this as well, okay? Thinking evil, so read, go think evil. And then Shane again, cunning like Wile E. Coyote minus everything backfiring, right? Which again, good. You're on the analogy train tonight, right? Good stuff. Okay. Thinking here, how would I get me? I love that. Flipping the perspective, thinking if I was the bad guy, how would I get myself? Okay. Those things, think evil, be cunning, do unpredictable things. Even looking at it like saying, okay, how would I get myself? Most of those things are statements. They're true statements, but they're statements. The question was, how do you start developing cunningness? And you see the danger is like if there was something that happened, we're doing a scenario and there was a breakdown, and the reason that mistake happened was due to a lack of focus. And as a coach, I walked up and said, make sure at this point you focus harder. You understand the statement and you understand what you need to do, but you don't know how. I haven't answered the question of how. How do I focus harder? How do I build more endurance in my focus so I can focus longer? Because maybe that was the problem. So the same thing in cunning, what I want to do is I want to give you the answer to how you start developing cunning so that you can think evil, so that you can do unpredicted behaviors, right? All of that stuff. Here's what it is. In order to start developing cunning, think about it this way. A person is much easier to be cunning to, like to utilize cunning on them when strengths and weaknesses are known. How do you start developing cunning? Learn the strengths and the weaknesses of the people or types of people in which you will need to be cunning towards. What are we talking about? Oh, fuck. Bad guy blueprints. You see, let's go back to my analogy. Why did I start there? Who would I target? I can study Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu all day long. I don't even have to fucking do it. I can study it. It would help a bit if I did a bit of it. But what can I learn from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu by studying it? Just watching tapes. You know what? Like, there's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, right? Just BJJ tournaments, just rolling. No punching, none of that stuff. You watch the techniques that are executed in that competition. And then you watch the UFC or the equivalent of the UFC where guys are striking and hitting, and you'll see a dramatic difference in the techniques being attempted and applied and successfully completed. Why is that? Because in this one, people are hitting, people are kicking, people are punching, people are elbowing. That changes the context of the situation, which changes a lot of the techniques and the way that they're implemented. Right? Certain things you can't, put your hands in certain places holding onto a guy's leg while the guy sits up and smashes you in the face. Okay? But here's the thing. What are we studying? What are we learning? I'm learning strengths and weaknesses. And the second I learn strengths and weaknesses, what does this allow me to do?
Exploit them.
Yeah, with what?
And you use the weaknesses to your advantage and use the strengths against them.
Sounds pretty fucking cunning to me. You insidious motherfucker, Dustin. Here's the thing.
I learned from the best.
Thanks, buddy. That's a great compliment. Me and hopefully you're referencing me.
Yeah, man.
Just joking. So let's say me and you, Dustin, we're gonna go out. We're gonna target somebody. Let's make this a fucking easy night. Let's just go hang outside the BJJ school. Let's just wait till the owner, the instructor comes out. He's probably one of the highest ranking guys. I know that on the Tuesday night, he takes his fucking money and he goes and deposits all that cash to the bank and stuff. So like, let's wait till we know he's got some cash. Fucker drives a nice car. He's got himself a brand new iPhone 13 plus some Air Jordan sneakers worth about $1,000. So let's target that guy. Let's get him that night. Okay? Well, based off what I know versus strengths and weaknesses, I say, listen, I'm going to walk up to the guy. I'm going to start talking shit to the guy. I'm going to make sure that this guy understands I'm a threat to him. I'm going to fucking straight up tell him, I want your fucking phone and I'm not a goddamn fucking thing you can do about it. Right? So then we're going to get into this physical thing. Now, all I want you to do, Dustin, is, keep yourself hidden a little bit. And once we get into this thing, once we get into it, make sure you wait at least 3 to 5 seconds. Don't do shit for 3 to 5 seconds. Why?
so that he gets completely focused on you, and blinders come on, and he now has time to start operating on his game plan, his reference point,
That's
which
good.
is
That's good. But if when we go physical, I want you to have a 3 to 5 second delay once he makes contact with me.
Because he's going to tie up.
I want
Yeah,
you to
check
let
the
him
ground.
get deeper into his position.
Yeah, he tries to take you down, and he's on the ground. That's
I
best
want him to
case
take me
scenario.
down. That's my whole plan. I don't want him just to take me down. I want him to take me down and wrap me in the tightest guard ever. I want him to have me in the triangle setup. I want his feet across the back of my head, one foot tucked underneath the back of the other knee. I want him held in position. Not positioning, I want him trapped. Like position, set up the trap and then submit. I want him into the quicksand. Why?
Because that's when he's most vulnerable to me.
Thank you. That's fucking cunning. Not like I go up to him, hey, you son of a bitch, and say, well, I'm worried about getting jujitsu'd. And he tackles me, and the second he touches me, help, come fast, Dustin, let's get this guy. Why would I do that? That would give him an opportunity to push away. That would give him an opportunity to maybe execute a different throw on me or take me down and disconnect, and then he fucking jujitsu's your ass. You gotta remember, the guy's a black belt. He might pick me up, slam me, grab you, slam you, and then look for 4 other people to do the same thing to. But the point is, I know what he's going to do. Do I need to know what technique he's going to do? I don't know. There's mount, there's guard, there's cross side, there's quarter position, there's north-south. Like, there's only a handful of positions. And in this type of situation, how good do I have to be? I don't have to be that good. I don't have to really do anything. You got a guy that's big and strong. All I got to do is, if I'm somewhat in shape, when he comes in, I just clinch up and hold. And he's working around and just keep my limbs tight, keep my neck tight, and I just got to survive 6 to 7 seconds. Worst case scenario, he's got my back, he's starting to choke me out, 6 seconds till I go out, and you got the 2 little pieces of wood with the piano string or piano wire across it, wraps around his neck, and you start choking and pulling back on that thing. He doesn't have 6 or 7 seconds with that. See, what I'm putting in there was not just cunning, but cunning with a few fucking spicy drops of evil. Right? You got the machete, you got the knife, you know what I mean? Like, that's just bringing one guy. He's a black belt. I may as well bring 2 guys. So that way there's 3 of us. Like, okay, we got a big ass bodybuilder. Guy's big and strong. Fuck, he gets a hold of me. Like, he grabs you by that neck. Well, how are we gonna counter that strength? You got the razor? Yeah, I got the razor. Perfect. Everyone's got their surgical blades? Yeah, perfect. Excellent. First thing you want to do, remember, take him. Your whole goal is get him behind the knee or get him on the Achilles tendon. My whole goal is to distract him, get all his attention on me. He grabs me by the neck. I can just hold on to that long enough. It's just pick me off the ground. Make sure you get the Achilles tendon, get the back of the knee. Go inside, get the femoral artery. You got the baseball bat, you got the lead pipe, right? Base of the skull. You're cutting his Achilles tendon, you're hitting him in the base of the skull, I'm doing whatever. That's just cunning. Now, I don't even have to know the guy. I can just walk around and go, let's pick the biggest guy we can possibly find. Because that guy's going to be more likely to tunnel vision on me, more likely to use his strength, more likely to attach to me, because he's going to want to grab, pull, push, lift, throw. This is what he's going to want to do. You get a guy with different abilities probably going to want to punch. Like, again, we can predict it. But if I'm the violent criminal, you got to remember, people, if I'm talking from the perspective of the violent criminal, you don't think they think this way? They think evil. Cunning, weaponized human beings, your motto is doom on you. You got an evil fucking plan to try to murder. This is what murder means. This is why we use the term murder. Because the second you got someone trying to fucking murder you, do you feel a different sense of insidiousness and ruthlessness in what they're going to do? You should. Because why would they not do this? There's people that right now think that people would hear this and go, oh my God, you're telling people what to do. I can predict with almost 100% accuracy how many hours of CCTV footage of real world assaults, murders you've watched. And that's 0. I can also tell how many movies you've watched, which is a lot. Okay, so one of the things, let's just take it down because I want people to have it. How do we train people? The second, sorry, I was about to unplug my mic or my headset. The second people come into us, one of the first things that we're doing is one of the first identity shifts, because that's what has to happen. You have to have an identity shift. Right? The second that you start linking your identity to something different, a whole world of different, a different identity, different possibilities, different outcomes. And so one of the things we do is, I'll use the analogy I've used. You're gonna have a guy come in that trains with me that shows up, and he's 6'2" and 235, 40 pounds, played college football, or rugby or something like that. Meaning what? Great shape, clearly great athlete, strong. Not a stranger to physical contact, right? Manufactured aggression, getting in there, hitting in the scrums, getting there, hitting off the line. So this guy's a strong guy. Now, we're training with this guy. And this guy, we happen to be doing a drill, and this guy's doing something one-on-one. And this guy drives in, he gets punched in the mouth. And he's like, well, I've never boxed before. This is bullshit. So he's trying to move around, and he gets punched in the mouth. And I'm just having somebody feeding him, because that's not how we're training. But you got some guy feeding him, playing an attacker, and this guy just goes, look at this guy's big. Bah, bah, and he just throws a couple hard snaps in the guy's face. This guy's like, motherfucker. Now, this is just training. The guy gets popped a couple times, but he doesn't like that. His competitive nature comes out. So the guy, the feeder, his partner goes to throw that jab back in his face, and he just fucking, rugby style in there. Rugby's grabs the guy, picks the guy up, slams the guy on the ground, and now, the guy's down and out. And everything's stopped. Now listen, what's the first thing I'd say to the guy? Good job. You say, what? Yeah, like, if you're going to play hockey and a guy puts the puck in the net, that's a goal. That guy was punching you in the face. It hurt you. You got mad. You shot in there. You took what skills you had. You took your rugby skills. You drove in there, grabbed the guy, put him on the ground. That's putting the puck in the net. Congratulations. That's awesome. However, wasn't very cunning, was it? Guy's like, well, what do you mean? Well, it wasn't very cunning. What if there was two of those guys? What if that was their plan? They saw you because look at your shirt. 2021 National Rugby Championships. Like, you fucking look like a rugby player. You're wearing a shirt that tells me you're a rugby player. That guy only has to know a little bit about rugby to identify strengths and weaknesses. The strength, you're physically aggressive like that. The weakness, you're physically aggressive like that and you're going to rush in. If there was two of them, they would have cunningly strategized and tactically set you up, and right now, you're being stabbed in the kidneys. You're being, choked with a piano wire from behind. You're getting a tire iron to the back of your head. So, what you did, great. That's a success. You put the puck in the net. But we have to also, part of my job is to make sure that I'm teaching you to be more cunning. So I'm going to show you a couple other things that you could have done that are born from cunning. Born from the doom on you mindset where you are not as predictable. They cannot look at you and surmise the total sum of who you are. This is what, let me flash back. I know I'm dominating this, I'll let you guys jump into this. But one of our things, the methodology and the weaponizing, was that I said I've done jiu-jitsu since 1994. So I've gone into jiu-jitsu seminars, I've gone into jiu-jitsu schools, I've rolled with some of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world, and when I'm in their presence, they see me as a jiu-jitsu guy. Because why? Because I'm there to play their game. I came to learn from them, even though 90% of what they're teaching me I don't want. Because I don't want to learn the art of jiu-jitsu. I don't want to learn the totality of the art. I don't want to compete. I want to learn how to stabilize and destabilize so that I can stabilize or destabilize to inflict pain and get back up and stay off the fucking ground. But I know that I've been wrestling for 27-something years, and I still need to do it for the rest of my life to maintain, to get better and better at stabilizing and destabilizing. I've also gone into Thai boxing seminars and Thai boxing clubs, and I've gone into boxing, and I've gone into Savat, and I've gone into Kali, and I've gone into all of these different places where the very best in the world are doing their niche things. And in there, I'm never bringing what I'm doing. I'm never bringing weaponizing with me. I'm doing what they're doing. Now, I don't want to give people the impression that what we're doing is just this eclectic mix, because then they go, well, that's just MMA. No, it's none of that stuff. But what it is that I understand I'm doing that to learn firsthand through experience strengths and weaknesses. I'm not even doing it necessarily because I'm going to take the very best of Thai boxing and I'm going to use that. In preparing for violence, there's very little need for a Thai kick. So I know how to do it. I've done it for years, but there's not really much of a need. Now, a teep kick maybe, but does that make sense? But I'm learning the strengths and weaknesses. Because if some violent criminal came to attack me and my family, and all of a sudden the guy's hands come up in a certain, like, look, everyone that knows Thai boxing, just recognize this. They just can't see my leg bouncing up and down every half second, right? But the Thai boxing, the boxer, you know what I mean? You got more of the MMA guy. You got the wrestler. Like, every posture of presentation is a tell, but I've studied strengths and weaknesses. I don't have to worry about George St. Pierre. You don't have to worry about Iron Mike Tyson, unless you're an idiot on the plane who's talking shit to him. Then maybe you got to worry a little bit. You're not going to have to worry about the very best professional fighters in the world. They're not targeting you. They don't give a fuck about you. They're not out there doing that shit. But I want to understand, you can have some bad guys, right? Guys that are in the prison system, and what are they doing? They're rolling their mattresses up and they're throwing a few hooks. They're throwing a few jab crosses. They're sitting on top of it in the mount position, working their ground and pound. They're holding it between their legs, squeezing it as if they got them in their guard. Now, are they doing it at a world-class level? Most of them, not even close. But they're doing a little bit of it. So we got to understand the strengths and weaknesses of these bad guys, right? Does that make sense? That was a long tirade. Can you guys maybe clarify a few things that I might have missed?
I think one thing to kind of point out, because you touched on the fact, like, do people really think that violent criminals don't think this way? That they aren't using cunning? To?
Oh, we're losing you. He'll have to jump off, Brad. You want to throw something in on that?
Yeah, you know what? There's a point that has been, ever since we started talking, that's kind of been in my head, and and it's really the fact that, like, the challenge that I think, like, we'll use the martial artists, for example, is, yeah, some of them are there for self-defense, right? Because that's what's advertised. So that's where they go and they think that that's what they're getting. So in that environment, they think what they're doing is the solution. Mm-hmm. But never once have they asked themselves, probably ever, or they're ever taught from whoever's teaching them, is like, well, where are you guys vulnerable? What's the one thing that's going to get you killed, right? And I think that, like, it's almost like a self-feeding loop where it just gets ignored, it just gets bypassed, and it's like, if you're truly there for self-defense, it's like, well, you got to ask yourself some real hard fucking questions. Is like, what's like, where am I vulnerable? And I know that, like, there's a comment that's like, well, how would I get me? But it's like, well, it's like, if people are really gonna use violence against me, it's like, where is this weak? But I think that as they're in that process, it just gets hammered down that it's like, no, this is the solution, because they do this, you do that. They do this, you have something for that. You do this, they do that. You have it's technique versus technique and all this bullshit, which isn't the reality of what they're going to face. But I don't know, like, it's kind of like, I see it as just this spiral, and it feeds itself, and it's just like, we talk a lot about accepting the realities of violence. Mm-hmm. And if you are going to accept those realities of violence, and no matter what it is, if you are participating in sport or martial arts, it's like, if you're accepting those realities of violence, you got to ask yourself, like, how am I going to get fucking killed out there? Because if you don't, then you're just being recreational.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's different, like, obviously, and maybe, I don't know, that's just a point. And I know that it's just kind of stuck in my head since we've been talking.
Perfect. Dustin, you're back.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Okay.
I was just going to say, like, you'd mentioned, do people not think that violent criminals are going to behave that way, right? Use that cunningness against us, try to exploit our strengths and weaknesses against us. And I think people have to understand, like, violent criminals, they don't give a shit about ego, right? They're not the guys in the bar or wherever where somebody looks at their girlfriend for too long and now it's bumping chest. It's not about a spilt beer and posturing in front of their friends. Like, these are people with very insidious, motivations and they'll take life if they have to. They don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a very different human being, a different psychosis you're kind of talking about when we're dealing with violent criminals. And I think people just have to understand that, like, that's why being cunning is so, so important, because you're just up against something very different than I think what people traditionally would think of when you say, oh, a fight, or even if you use the word assault. Right away, the reference point, again, it just comes back to that more of a traditional fight like you see in movies and stuff like that. So yeah, they don't give a shit about ego, right? They don't care how it looks. They care if it's efficient. They care if it's effective. They care if it's, damage limitation, right? That's what they care about. They want all the opportunity and none of the risk, and then all the reward.
100%.
So,
yeah, 100%. And I think too that I'll for me, I mean, maybe we're coming to the end of the conversation here. Not that we couldn't go much more on it, but the concept, again, I'm just kind of finished my thought where I went off a bit of a tirade of, like, doing jiu-jitsu, doing Thai boxing, doing all these things. Like, I've explored these arts. I've done these arts. I've trained with instructors who are mentors who are world class in all of these arts. And one of the things is interesting is, like, because I was down there and I was doing that training, and they would come up and they would train with me here in Edmonton. I'd bring them in and they would see and train with some of my students. How many times they were always surprised that my students didn't know certain drills, like certain things. And they'd be like, you do this, like the Thai boxing 18-8 count. Like, there's different 18 counts and sequences and series in Thai boxing. And it's like, I've done those hundreds of times, thousands of times maybe. And then they'd come up and be like, oh, like, so, they're my students, they grab the pads and they're looking at us, go, how long have you been training? Guys be like 5-6 years. And they're, oh, okay, so you know the 18-8s. And they're like, no, I don't know that. And they're like, how do you not know that? Because what we were training, what I went and did, was to have firsthand experience and study the strengths and weaknesses. So that when we came back, these people, my students, didn't come to me to learn Thai boxing. They didn't come to me to learn jiu-jitsu. They're not coming to me for that. These are family men. These are mothers, women. Like, these are, teens. They have no interest in sport. They have no interest in the art. They all have either experienced violence firsthand and never want it to happen again, never want to be a victim again, or they recognize the reality of their situation. And for many of them, they're professionals. They have careers, they have families, they have all this stuff, right? They don't have the time. So what they're getting is, we're giving them the strategies, the tactics, and the tools. We're teaching them to be cunning and understand the strengths and weaknesses of how somebody might try to kick you in a violent assault. Because you compare that with thousands of hours of studying violent assaults, and you go, you know what? Look at this. When in these attempted murder type situations, if the violent predators threw a kick, what type of kick was it? It was not a spinning back kick. It wasn't an axe kick. It wasn't a Muay Thai leg kick. It wasn't, you saw usually a bastardized version of a kind of a front teepee kick that knocked somebody down. Someone come into a home invasion and they jumped up and they kicked. So we're teaching what the strengths and weaknesses are if somebody does that, and here's the countermeasures to that. You don't have to learn to do that necessarily, although we might depend. You get what I'm saying, right? So it's this thing where they're always like, I don't get it. Because no matter how much me, you, Brad, anyone might enjoy martial arts, might love, like all of us, like we rolled all together on Tuesday night and we just had a great session. We just rolled. We weren't talking about violence. We just rolled because we're lifestyle guys. We built you guys over 20 plus years of training each. We enjoy it. Great way to stay in shape, all that type of stuff. Love the sense it, love it. But that's separated from what my company does and what you guys do as coaches, what we are teaching. And that's an important thing. The clients that come to me are here to learn to weaponize against violence. That's the problem they're trying to solve.
An analogy that fits in with that perfectly. It's like, if you start getting sick, you're not feeling well, something's wrong. What do?
Yeah.
You're like, well, better apply to medicine at the local university and go see if I can get an MD and learn the ins and outs of every single system in the body and figure it all out, because I'm going to have to figure out what do I need specifically,
Yeah.
and then I can prescribe the treatment I need so that I can get better.
Yeah.
Or do I go to the guy who's done all that, looks at me and goes, oh no, you just need A, B, C, and D, and if you do that, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you do.
Yeah.
That's what we do. That's what this whole organization does, is like you break all of that stuff down and give people exactly what they need
Yeah.
for their problem, right?
Yeah. We diagnose what their weaknesses are and prescribe the remedy, which is weaponizing, and the disease is violence, and the diagnosis is the weaponizing process. And then, yeah, 100%. That was a great analogy. Great analogy. So, anyway, so I guess the last thing is with that is I can confidently make a statement, and I hope that after getting into this conversation, but this statement resonates in a deeper way than what it would have if I started off with this. But an I am statement, right? My self-image, I am statement. One of the things that I know keeps me safe. It's not the quality of my technique. It's not the years of training in each thing. Like, if I look at myself and say, well, I'm good because I've done this, whatever. None of that shit. I am unpredictable. That's the thing. And anyone that knows me, anyone that's trained with me and has been around with this, that is a 100% true statement. I'm unpredictable. And I'm unpredictable in a lot of ways in my life, but I am absolutely 100% unpredictable in terms of what you cannot determine with any type of accuracy what I'm going to do to defend myself. Right? You know what I mean? Like you want to go to the ground, jiu-jitsu is not the first thing that's coming out. You get what I mean? Like you want to get like I have no art. I have no system. I have no fucking style. I have strategies, tactics, and tools that are adaptable, that are malleable, that are, you know what I mean? And they are designed by fucking nature to be unconventional, insidious, doom on you type cunning. That's built into the weaponizing system. And when you become what you do. And I love that. Right? I am not predictable. And I think each of you guys, I know, but I would think that you would say that as well. And get that juice out of it, and recognizing, I mean, listen, I'm not the biggest, I'm not the strongest, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the most talented, but I'm fucking unpredictable. And I'll tell you something, you might think in your head, I fucking bet I'd kick the shit out of this fucking guy. But I bet there's a part of you that goes, fuck it, not worth it, I'll go someone else. Because the unpredictability breeds uncertainty. And uncertainty, violent criminal, or morally good person, uncertainty often leads to fear. We fear the things we don't know. It causes hesitation. It causes self-doubt. That is destabilizing. That is the holes that we survive. That's how we survive. A bad guy goes to mug me, assault me, rape me, murder me, whatever the fuck it is. And yes, I said rape. Men get fucking raped. Right? We've dealt with this. You have a violent predator criminal that comes to attack you. They have a blueprint, an expectation of how you're going to respond to how they're attacking you. And when it is not congruous, when you do not respond in a congruous way, when what you do is fucking loaded with cunning because you understand the strengths and weaknesses of that bad guy, that changes the game, man. And that's funny, and I don't know if a lot of people understand that it's like, no, it's got to be because you're bigger. It's got to be because you're strong. It's because you got a better jab. It's because you got a better technique. You're better on the ground. And it's like, those things can all definitely win the day for you. But again, are you really better than everybody? Are you really the best at your jiu-jitsu academy? Are you really the best kickboxer in your club? Are you really winning all the tournaments? Are you really the top, one of the top ranked amateurs? Are you really fighting on the next UFC undercard? Are you really fighting for the heavyweight? Are you really that guy? Are you really the very best? And now there are some people that might listen to this to say, yeah, I am. Well, how many are there like you at your gym? Got 100 students at your gym? How many are like you? And right away, then the opposite comes. No, they're not like me. They're not like me. I'm one of the best. So what about everybody else? Oh, they just got to keep working. How long? 10 years? Old Dan, that's got a job that he works 12 hours a day, and he's got 3 kids and another one on the way, and his kids are in hockey and soccer. Old Dan, and he's down at the gym 7 days a week. He's got the same hours to put into it. He's got the same dedication and passion. He's 22 years old. No, he's not 22 years old. He's 32 years old. He's 42 years old. Been interested in this shit his entire life, but never had the time because he was building a career. He's providing for his family. And now finally he's finding a little bit of time in his life in his 40s. And he realizes, fuck, I'd love to do something. But the thing that matters most to me is being able to protect the people that I love. I'm beyond the desires and the worries of being in a fight and the desires of wanting to be some sort of world champion. Now, maybe he just wants to do a little recreational stuff. Maybe he just wants to get out of the house for social activity. Then jiu-jitsu, Thai box, whatever, go find your sport, your art, and man, you're better off for doing it, trust me. But if what you're looking for is to truly be able to protect your family, you got to be cunning. You got to be unpredictable. And whenever you go somewhere to look at what they're teaching you for self-defense, how cunning is it? How predictable is it? Can they study it? Do people understand it? I mean, one of the hardest things we have, why we do this podcast, one of the things I spend the most time with when I'm talking to prospective clients is getting them to understand how this actually works. Because they're like, it's like this. No, it's not like I don't get this. It's unpredictable. That's violence. That's the nature of it, man. That's like, having a conversation with, a black ops special soldier, a tier 1 special operations guy, and going, I don't really understand all the tactics. And it's like, you guys that's kind of sneaky shit. It's covert shit. Like, I don't, like, yeah, not common knowledge, unconventional, insidious. You know what I mean? Like, kind of the nature of it, right? Specialized warfare, like unconventional warfare. That's the name of it, right? So, okay, Shane threw up another comment. Being cunning and unpredictable is almost like a cheat code that can bridge the gap in situations where you aren't the most skilled, the strongest, have the numbers, outgunned, etc. 100%. And that is violence. That's every situation, right? Okay, anything else, guys, on the topic of cunning?
Just to expand on your very last thought there, where you said, if you go somewhere else and you look at what they're doing and is it cunning, the answer is probably going to be no. And then ask why. Why aren't they teaching people to be cunning? Well, because they're not truly preparing someone to fight a truly violent criminal.
Yeah.
They're preparing people for a fight.
Yeah.
And as we've talked about on many podcasts, that's not what violence is.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, you can be doing jiu-jitsu and there's cunning guys in jiu-jitsu. The setup for the triangle, the setup for the sweep, the setup for how they take the back or the ankle lock. There's a lot of cunning in their strategies and tactics. I mean, by this depth of the conversation, you're still with us. What we're talking about is different, right? So I tried to use the analogies of how I would target a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy. I'm not going to get on the ground and go, well, I'm going to roll with them. But what he doesn't know is I have a sneaky take the back move. You know what I mean? When he thinks he's pulling guard, I hook this foot over here. I step this way. I shrimp my hips 30 degrees, not 31 degrees, not 29 degrees. And then I get his back with an underhook double over leg. You get what I mean? There's cunning in boxing. There's cunning fighters. There's sneaky fighters. We're using the word in a very different way. So hopefully people picked up on that. I would assume you did. Brad, anything final?
Yeah, you know what? I just think it's a really powerful perception shift where a lot of people would walk around and whatever they do, boxing, kickboxing, MMA, and they were like, nobody's going to fuck with me because this is what I do, right? And they advertise it, right? It's like, 100%. Nobody's going to fuck with me. I'm wearing a jiu-jitsu shirt. I'm wearing a Muay Thai shirt. So nobody's going to fuck with that because they know that I have that. And it's a huge, powerful perception shift to be like, no, that's why someone's going to assault you, right? Yeah. And it's like, there's no survivable value in thinking that nobody's going to exploit you. But again, 100%. That's coming from our perspective, not their perspective. But again, it's like that perspective shift. And if anybody is listening in that realm, it's like, think about that. The reason why what you do is the reason why someone's going to attack you.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's a game changer. If that doesn't change the fucking game for that industry, that realm, I don't fucking know.
Yeah. Well, that's why I went with that analogy, because if people are like, you're like, I'm going to pick someone that's weak or whatever. Most men are like, I'm not weak. I'm a big guy. I'm in shape. I wear my little brother's t-shirt so my biceps look bigger. Like, no one's going to fuck with me. It's me, ego. And then my whole thing was like, I'm going to target the guy that has the biggest ego. I'm going to target the guy that's advertising his thing the most. I'm going to target the guy who like strengths and weaknesses people.
Yeah.
The bad guys are using our strengths and weaknesses against us all the time. You don't think they used your kids as leverage? You don't think the fact that you're with your wife and your child, or that the child is young enough that they can't walk or be on their own, you know what I mean? Like, that's a weakness. You don't think they'd exploit that to get you? Fuck yes, they're going to exploit. That's leverage. You know, but yet good guys, we think we have this different moral code. And in your life, there is a moral compass. There is ethics. But there's a point when you become a human being fighting for your fucking life or the life of your loved ones. And at that point, there is no moral compass other than you have the right to life, liberty, freedom, and security, and to not have that infringed upon by some fucking criminal element. That to me that's black and white. And that's the point we're talking about. Asocial violence, the point when you become a human being fighting for your life. That's it. That's the context you need to think of this entire conversation. In that context, everything we said is a truth. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to agree with it. You can do whatever you want with it, but that's the truth. You know, I don't have to agree with gravity. I can go step off a 19-story building and I can all the way down, and gravity's bullshit right until I hit the fucking pavement. So that's okay, right? I can die by my convictions, I guess. Great analogies on this episode, right? This podcast, great analogies. All right, everybody, let's wrap it up here. So, anyways, love this conversation, man. I love this one. This is really good. Thank you guys so much for joining me, Brad, Dustin. I appreciate your insights as always. Everybody that's watching, that commented, Shane, Linda, everybody. I just really appreciate you guys. The feedback tonight was excellent. For a lot of you that are watching this, you can either are listening to this on our through your favorite, wherever you get your podcasts from. Make sure that you please go like, subscribe, leave a review. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if there's something you want us to talk about. But that helps a ton. Every time you guys leave us a review and a rating, it allows us access to more people just like you, good people that want to learn to defend themselves. We also have a YouTube channel that we had an older YouTube channel, but I started up a new one with this, and that is Awaken the Protector Within. Check it out if you want to watch these. There's going to be lots more content coming up. I'm going to start getting back. I've been working on a bunch of projects on the side here, and I'm going to start getting back to releasing a lot more content. So you can expect the podcast to blow up a bit, 2, 3, sometimes 4 or 5 episodes a week coming up. We will be here with Brad and Dustin every Thursday doing this as well. And we got a lot of really cool, exciting stuff coming up. So check us out, follow, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on our podcast, wherever you like to get your podcasts from. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, whatever you want. Awaken the Protector Within. We appreciate it all. Love you guys. I've been getting some great feedback. We appreciate. Stay safe, stay weaponized. We will chat again soon, everybody. Have a great night. Hey, thanks so much for listening. And listen, if you found this content valuable, here's 3 different ways that I can help you weaponize for free. First, grab a free copy of my ebook, The Education of a Weaponized Man. To get your free copy today, head to ebook.awakentheprotector.ca. Number 2, you can take a free workshop where you will discover the 10 insights violent criminals don't want you to know. To take this workshop, head to workshop.awakentheprotector.ca. The third way is to head to my website and check out all of my free-line programs that cover everything from mindset to strategies. To check us out, go to awakentheprotector.ca. And finally, leave a 5-star review so that we can reach more good people like you who are ready to weaponize and rise regardless.